What is the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation and how's it doing?
I love the Fruit Tree Planting Foundation. I've been a fanatical planter all the years of my life, ever since I was a real small child. Even starting back, the earliest memories I have when I was around 5 years old, going around the neighborhood and renegade planting trees. No one even actually knew that. Not even my brothers, not anybody in my family. I never even shared that with anybody. And then one day I realized I have never actually told anybody that. Relatively recently, so it's part of my genetic makeup as being a tree planter. So I have to be planting trees all the time. And as a result of my entrepreneurship, I thought, well, I've got to have something that's going to give back. And I decided that the give back was going to be a foundation that planted trees. And I founded that foundation in 2002. And since that time, we've planted 1 million fruit, nut, and medicinal trees all over the world. And we had a huge year in 2020. I love my team so much. They're just incredible. In that crazy year of 2020, we actually planted 96,000 trees.
Do you eat a vegan diet? Do you eat a raw food diet? Do you eat an organic diet? Do you eat a whole food diet? How has your diet changed over the last 20 years?
I've been a vegetarian for over 30 years. I think 31 years now because we're in 2021. So 31 years, and I've been vegan most of that time. In fact, I think for a run of for sure around almost 20 years, I was vegan. And I'm a vegetarian now. I eat mostly raw foods. I ate only raw foods for 17 and a half years. Only raw vegan foods, actually. And then after a while, just my body, I was in Peru and my body was like, I was really heavily working it. Incan Trail, exploring the country, and I was up in this area. It's a highland valley up in the Andes. So you're going up maybe, I don't know, 8,000 feet, and then it drops off into a valley, an 8,000 foot high valley, and it's kind of a pampas grass, kind of a dry valley, and there's no way to survive there if you're a human being on the food that's there. But if you had an animal like a cow or a goat that could eat the pampa grass, then you could survive from the milk of that animal. And in that environment, I really wanted some of that cheese. It was a raw cheese, and it was like fluffy, and I was like, I want to eat that. My instinct told me to eat it, so I ate it, and it felt good. I hadn't eaten dairy products at that time in like 20 years. And it was the first time gone back to eating dairy products. Now I found out from that point on that I could eat dairy products as long as it's from like a wild animal, like in that type of situation. Like I can eat buffalo cheese. I can't eat cow cheese. No way. I can eat goat's cheese a little bit, but generally it doesn't really agree with me. I'm better off with, if it's like something wild, like a camel or camel cheese or something, I could do that. And so some of the Chinese herbs I'll do, like pearl. Pearl can be extracted from an oyster without killing the oyster, and that's how it's done now. Because that way you can get 3 or 4 oysters or 3 or 4 pearls out of the oyster in its lifetime, rather than killing the oyster, which is the way they did in the old days. So I'm cool with doing pearl calcium, which is one of my favorite supplements actually because of its history in Chinese medicine. So those are the kind of things that I do that are kind of quasi animal. But my main thing is I will do things that will, if they're from the animal world, it cannot involve. Oh, that was a big set going by there. It cannot involve killing. I don't want to eat anything that involves killing, and that's my main ethic.
Why don't you watch TV, and what are the benefits of not watching?
I stopped watching TV about 30 years ago, and there's nothing important on TV. There's no good advice on TV. I mean, I guess that's the best way to say it. I mean, I spent a lot of years doing television, doing live television to try to get something good and something educational, something nutritious on television, which we did. We did that successfully for quite a few years. But the general gist of TV, maybe it's 90%, maybe it's 99%. It's just not good advice. It's not good ideas and programming in your mind. For example, a lot of people like this show Black Mirror, which is really, it's dystopian programming. Like, we don't need these dystopian ideas in our mind. We need ideas that uplift society, uplift ourselves, uplift our families, that uplift our mood. And I generally found that I just couldn't go through the roller coaster of emotion that movies would take me through. I don't watch movies either. That's another one. And maybe I see one movie a year. And that's always a kind of a fun little escape. But I'd rather work. I'd rather do what I'm doing than do that. So people who say to me, I don't have enough time, you do have enough time. Just stop watching TV and movies. You'll have enough time.
Do you use a cell phone, and are you concerned about wireless technology?
I am very concerned about wireless technology. I do use a cell phone. Strangely, over the years, came up with this concept here of, I don't ever hold the phone in my hand. That's terrible. I mean, so many people over the years, and probably you included, probably everybody who's listening right now has had a moment where you were holding your phone and you're like, this is just frying my hand, because you're actually in circuit with your phone. When you're touching that screen, you're in an electrical circuit with that phone, and it will irritate your joints, and sometimes you can get carpal tunnel problems. And I suspect that the real cause of carpal tunnel is just being fried by the electronics. So I try to use my computer when it's unplugged. If I'm using my phone, I don't have it plugged in. It's not plugged into a charger. This is something that I found out using voltmeters, that if you're plugged in, like if this computer and this phone are plugged in, it's crazy how much electromagnetic field is coming off of it. The worst actually is tablets. So in measuring different devices, computers, like this computer, when it's plugged in, if I touch this computer, it's going to give off somewhere around 9 to 12 volts. Phones are a little bit less, but tablets can be as high as 20 volts or more if they're plugged in. So if you're going to use these devices, always use them when they're in your hand or your child's hand. Make sure they're not plugged into the wall. Do not have anything plugged into the wall. When you're using them, you make sure that you're using some kind of a shielding. Like I use every kind of shungite. I've got 4 or 5 of them here. This one, this one, this one, this one, and one under this one actually. And the case itself, shungite shielding mostly, a few other items that are in there. And just to have something to mitigate the electromagnetic field. Now, people ask me which ones work. I don't know which ones work. I suspect shungite works as good as anything, but I like as many different devices on my phone as possible, just because I don't know. I'd rather have something that works a little bit than nothing that works nothing. Another thing too about electromagnetic devices, and I learned this in engineering school, it's just a key idea, is that the distance you are away from it is the most important way to protect yourself. So if I can be on my phone, that's why I have it on a stand. I can just be sitting here talking to someone on my phone. I don't have to touch it. It's over there. They can hear me, and I'm not near it. The radiation off of your computer, your tablet, and your phone attenuates at the square of the distance. So it attenuates very quickly. It drops off quickly. So the further you are away, the safer you are. If you're driving in your car, maybe you want to have your phone in the passenger seat and talking that way, or in a clip over here somewhere. So it's just not, you don't want to ever do this. And I will add one more thing about this too. In measuring these devices, one of the worst issues is when you turn the phone on and it makes that handshake with the tower, there's a spike in the radiation off of your phone. And so my real strong recommendation is when you turn that on, just keep it over there for a second until it makes the handshake before you even use it at all. Don't have it in your hand. Like I'll just turn on and I'll step away. And then as soon as I see it's got the handshake, I'll go, okay, then I'll get closer to it. So that's another thing I wanted to add in.
What are your thoughts on 5G wireless technology?
5G wireless technology is very high intensity radiation, and that's why we have to have so many of them close together in these inner city environments where they're being rolled out. The reason why you need so many is because it's only going to go about 200 meters, and then it's going to be attenuated by the walls and the brick and the materials of the buildings, the steel, etc., the cement. So that kind of wireless is very high intensity, but again, attenuates quickly. I generally don't want to be around 5G. So it's high intensity radiation. Now, what they're going to tell you is that, oh, no, this is for you to be able to download movies or your phones to work better. I'd be surprised if anybody was in a 5G environment where your phone actually was faster. My phone's not faster in a 5G environment, like in downtown Toronto or New York or wherever these 5G towers are rolled out and it shows 5G on my phone. It's not faster. So there's other things that are going on. What they really want to do is they want to roll out the Internet of Things. So they want to bathe you in even more wireless radiation so that your coffee maker, your phone, your tablet, your television, your washing machine, your dishwasher is all on the internet and all going through the 5G network so it can handle the bandwidth of that. I think that's the real goal of it all. Now that right there is just, they're going to keep going with this until we say stop. It's going to, right, we need some kind of, in the Dune books, they called, if you remember Frank Herbert's Dune, famous science fiction book series, they had an idea of what was called a Butlerian jihad, which was at some point the technology got to a point where they're like, you shall make no computer in the image of a human brain. So they began to start pushing back on the technology because it was an affront on our own biology, which is what we're seeing today with the radiation exposure. Therefore, we're going to need at some point a new Nuremberg trials where these people are just getting away with all kinds of affronts against our biology, even though they know that that much Wi-Fi, that much radiation, that the cell phone being right here is harmful to biological tissue. That's been known all along. They don't care. They keep rolling out more and more and more of it anyway. So at some point, we're going to need some kind of a Nuremberg 2.0, or we're going to need some kind of a world summit where we say, hey, that's enough. It's over. Now, that could happen in the upcoming run of because we're kind of in a runaway moment of evil right now, where they're just going to try to get away with anything. They're going to try to pass any law that's going to cause any ability to, the government can just steal whatever they want, get away with whatever they want. All over the world this is happening, and that tells us that this is a centralized UN, World Economic Forum, World Health Organization plan or plot to be able to basically push the boundaries. They're going to push the boundaries all the way. We can eject you 3 times a year. We can do this. We can do that. And it's just going too far. So it's going to come to a head in our lifetime. And hopefully it's going to end in a way where we do have a Butlerian jihad, where we suddenly say, hey, we're going to actually we're going to codify for the world new human rights of privacy. That's a big one, right? Because when you got 5G all around you and you got everything on the internet all around you, you don't have any privacy. They know exactly when you're using the restroom. They know exactly when you're in the shower. They know when that dishwasher's on. They know how much internet you're using. They know where you're going on the internet, etc. So those are some ideas that come up on that. This kind of idea of having a world conference that sets this standard of human rights, a new standard of digital human rights, is coming. So I want people to start thinking about it.
What are your thoughts on genetically modified foods and glyphosate?
I spent a lot of time with Jeffrey Smith. Jeffrey Smith's a good friend of mine. He's the Institute for Responsible Technology founder, probably the leading authority in the world on GMO foods and how GMO foods interact with our microbiome or our bacteria in our gut and can interfere with the bacteria in our gut. I'm not a big fan of genetically modified food. I'm sure nature does it just fine out there. I've been a farmer for all my life, really. I started in the 1970s farming avocado trees. That's where I got the name avocado. And nature does it fine. If you're growing something that the bugs are eating, don't grow that. Grow something else. Or let the bugs have half of it, you eat half of it. Or let the deer have half of it, you have the other half. This whole thing of like, we're going to spray everything and we're going to chemicalize everything, really at the bottom of it is greed. It's greed, because it's like you won't let the insects have even a bite. You won't let the raccoons have anything. You just want it all. And that comes down to greed and economics, and we're just on a runaway train on that track right there of just like, no, we want everything. We're going to control everything. We're going to do these monocroppings over here. We're going to make sure no bug or no bird or no raccoon or no anything can touch this crop right here. That's unnatural. That's so unnatural. And it's not going to produce a food that's going to make us healthy and that's going to nourish like a new human being, right? Because we want each generation to get stronger. We want each generation to be more intellectually capable. We want each generation to be more connected to the earth. So that direction of monocropping, GMO farming is not taking us closer to that goal. The real answer is the small family farm, where each person has an acre or two, and then they just are able, somebody in the family is going to be good at trees. Somebody who's in the family is going to be good at carrots. Somebody in the family is going to be good at maybe fermenting vegetables. And it's easy to grow all the food you need in 2 acres for sure. And I would say you could probably, if you're really clever, you could probably do it in an acre. And not just for you, I'm talking a whole family. So a family of 5 could grow all the food they need for sure in 2 acres, but probably an acre if they're really clever.
What type of water should we drink, assuming we don't have access to a local spring?
This is such a great question. I'm a huge water fanatic, actually. And I've been going to springs all over the world. I've been to some of the best springs in the world. Some of my favorites are in Iceland. Some of my favorites are in Mount Shasta. California is a really great one I really like a lot. There's some epic ones all across the eastern seaboard of the North American continent, all the way from the North Georgia mountains right into Quebec and Ontario. So I have spent a lot of time in the field checking out springs and the qualities of springs on different continents in different circumstances. that's a really fun thing. So I do want to put that out there on the water question is, should you do that? And the answer is yes. If you can, if you have that in your heart to go check out water in its natural state, what a great hobby. Now, let's say we're in a situation like in Texas, a lot of people here have wells, and the wells typically have high calcium content, which is going to create like a crust on your pots and pans and your cups and on your dishes. So here, what I'd recommend is a water softener, right? Something that's going to remove the calcium. Now, people say, well, is an alkaline water good? Well, that high calcium water is by definition an alkaline water, but I wouldn't say it's good. You don't want to be drinking a lot of crust. You want to be drinking all that scale, that material that accretes on the side of your pots and pans. So you've got to have a water softener in order to bring the calcium down, just to not only protect your pipes in your house, but to protect these pipes, because if we don't get a filter, we're going to become a filter. We're going to become the filter unless we get something that's going to stage by stage get the heavy, hard minerals out. There is a relationship with drinking high chalky water and calcification. Because at some point your body's like, hey, that's too much. There's too much calcium there. Now, what you could do is you could use like a simple ceramic filter as an idea for a water softener that's real low tech. There's really good self-flushing water softeners now that flush themselves out every week or every 2 weeks and do it automatically, so you don't ever have to go in there and clean the filters out. But if you're doing it low-tech style, you could do just a big ceramic filter. So you pour in on the top and it gradually matriculates the water to the bottom. Then every now and then you're going to have to take that filter out, that ceramic filter, and replace it with something else. So you can do it low-tech. Another thing I would say about that is, if you're on a municipal water system, there's almost no way to make that water good, because there's so many contaminants in that water. And I mean every contaminant. Deuterium, tritium, every kind of pharmaceutical drug, every kind of recreational drug, every kind of toxic mineral, from lead. I mean, we're had that crazy expose in Flint, Michigan, that there was still lead in the water in America. There is. It's massively a problem in America. And many other things work their way into the water supply. So is it possible to have a water purifier that can completely correct that problem? I doubt it. There are really good ones out there, though. And if you're stuck in that situation, you should seek out the best you can find. I know many friends in that world, and it's a great world to be in, to help people purify their water right there at their tap and right into their house. It also, again, I just want to put that out there. When you get the calcium out, when you get the iron and other major heavy mineral contaminants out of the water, you're protecting the pipes in your house. So you're actually protecting your house, so you don't one day have to replumb the whole house. I've seen houses in Long Island, for example, where somebody came to one of my events in Long Island and they were like, something's wrong with my water. I said, go down the basement, take just a wrench and just bang the pipes down in the basement. Just bang the water pipes. This was a 90-year-old house. So then she went to lunch. She did that. She brought back and I said, turn your water on and then bring me a jug of that water back. She came back with a jug of that water. And of course, when she banged the pipes, there was all kinds of corrosion that was on the inside that got knocked off. Ultimately, what I'm saying is her place needs to be replumbed. Those pipes are too old. It's all accreted with stuff. We're living in those environments and not even realizing it. So that's another issue to think about is, again, get a filter for your home, because otherwise your pipes will become the filter and they'll accrete all kinds of corrosion on the inside of that pipe that will eventually cause your house a catastrophe.
Some raw foodists say sugar, even from fruit, feeds yeast and mold, fungus, and cancers. What do you think about fruit?
I love fruit. Fruit's about happiness. And I had blueberries this morning, and I had a half an avocado and some blueberries this morning, a little bit of peanut butter, and what else did I have? And a little bit, actually, this is a little bit of grape juice right here that I'm drinking right now. I absolutely love fruit, but it depends on the person's situation. If a person's been abusing a massive amount of sugar their whole life and they're riddled with candida type of problems or candida or yeast problems, then they need to actually fast from that, right, to bring things back into balance. Is it a good idea to live your life without fruit? And I would say no, because fruit's about happiness. Fruit is a celebratory expression of it's like the ego of the tree ultimately, or the plant or the vine. So we're kind of celebrating. It's kind of an happy vibe. Fruit is very happy. But again, if someone's abused sugar, then there's been too many ups already. So they need to have a few downs, or like bottom it out for a while and sort their metabolism out. So that's where I sit on that. Now, there are certain situations where I would say, stay off fruit for 2 years. There are certain fruit situations where I say stay off of fruit for 2 months. It could be that widely varied. Or I could say there's certain situations where I say stay off of fruit for 2 weeks. Do no sugar for 2 weeks. Generally, if people do a no sugar diet, including fruit sugar, they're going to lose weight. They're going to feel better. Energy is eventually going to normalize. They're going to get more into a ketosis state. Because as soon as I have anything like this grape juice right here, my blood sugar goes up. No question about it. If I'm constantly up with a constant hit of fruit sugar, even all day long, eventually that's going to irritate my system. It's going to irritate my pancreas. It's going to irritate my system because I'm constantly having to produce insulin to deal with it. So fruit is part of an overall balanced diet. It isn't the only thing in a diet, but it's a part of an overall balanced diet.
What do you think about dairy foods and eggs? You mentioned you think some dairy is acceptable. So can you expand on that whole topic?
Well, I like eggs, and eggs are good because of the choline in the egg yolk. And there's also, to some degree, some omega-3 in the egg yolk. So there's things in the egg yolk that are very good for the eyes and the brain. So generally, when you have like a child that's growing up, and it's easier to be vegan from say 20 to 40 because you're already developed. But in the developing phase, things like dairy products, things like eggs. What else would I put into there? Even like a little bit of herbs that come from animal sources. So, for example, I was talking about pearl as a calcium source. There's other ones. These types of things make more sense for either the young and developing or the aged, once you're, say, 50 and beyond, because you just need more of those nervous system protective and developmental substances. Now, that means that animal foods have something to do with nervous system, for sure. There's no question. Because I've seen, especially with vegans, if you don't get, for example, here's one that comes from a plant source ultimately, but it's one of these things that I would say children really need. And most people are getting it from fish oil. And that's algae oil, right? So the algae, or the omega-3s in algae oil. If you have fish oil, you're getting these omega-3s that are marine source, DHA and EPA. There's the terrestrial one, say from hemp seed or flaxseed or primrose, that's ALA. So there's ultimately 3 omega-3s. 2 of them are marine in origin. Those 2 marine in origin can originally come into the fish from the algae. So you could jump to the algae. Now, this is very important for developing children and for the elderly, for cognitive functioning and development. So I would recommend, like what I do is I have right here, this is a product. I love this product. This is a product I helped develop, but my cousin actually really finally figured out the secret of it, which is this is an omega-3 from algae oil as a liquid that I was trying to encapsulate this for years. My cousin came along, he's just put it in a squeeze bottle, and it just goes in like that, so much easier. And then the big problem with this type of thing is, even though it's from algae, it tastes like fish. So my cousin eventually found out you could put limonene in there, which is an essential oil. It's the essential oil that's associated with lemons. So it has a lemon flavor, but it beautifully covers up the fishy flavor. So it actually tastes relatively good. And kids like it. So that's really important. Now, in the old days, they used to take cod liver oil and be like, okay, kid, you're going to take your spoonful of cod liver oil, which all original indigenous people of this region, especially in the further north, Arctic conditions, Nordic countries, Pacific Northwest regions, they were huge on cod and cod oil for brain development. And again, they worked it out to like, hey, you're going to drink this cod liver oil, kid. And kids would be like, this is gross. But the parents would force it in because they knew it was so important for brain and eye development. Now we've got it down to, hey, we don't have to kill any fish. We could just go directly to the algae and do it that way. And algae are chlorophyll producing organisms in this case. And so therefore you're actually eating a plant. So that's another one that's kind of a quasi plant animal, but it's like 3/4 plant really, because it's chlorophyll. So that's another one that's in that quasi zone there, but I really recommend it for developing children, also for moms. Postpartum depression has been correlated to a deficiency in DHA, which is that omega-3 fatty acid from marine origin. So if you can give moms a lot of that, especially right after they give birth, it's really important. Plus, they'll produce more DHA in the breast milk for the baby.
What do you think about beef, chicken, pork, turkey, and fish in terms of their impact on our health?
Well, I don't eat any of those things, and I haven't eaten any of those things in over 30 years. And I just promoted a video. One of my people in my inner circle, she just put out a video on parasites in pork, and she's pouring soda on the piece of pork, and you can see the worms come out. It's really scary. It's frightening, actually. It's one of the reasons why I don't eat those things. I mean, sushi is notoriously a source of tapeworm infections, and just things like that. It's just I'm not a real big fan. Now, if you're going to eat those things, if you're going to eat any kind of a chicken or poultry or any kind of fish, cook it. Definitely cook it. Do not eat it raw, because you're just allowing the parasites to pass right into you. So this is why we cook, actually, those things, because we have to have some kind of a buffer, because we don't have the ability to fight off parasites the way, say, a wild animal can. We're too domesticated. So we can become very susceptible to parasite infections. And in fact, with COVID-19, let's talk about that for a second. I've been saying, I was taught this by my teachers 25 years ago. They said, you get all the parasites out of your system, you can't get a cold, cough, flu, or fever, because the parasite itself is a factory of those things. And the parasite itself deactivates or disables your immune system so that your immune system can't keep the viral load down. That's what I was taught. I took that advice to heart. Many things I added on to that, but that was one of the fundamental bases of all my cleansing, actually. Whenever we get people on a cleanse, we immediately go after the parasites. We get them on herbs that are parasite killers. Strangely and interestingly, under research of COVID-19, were any doctors in the world able to prevent any kind of COVID flu / influenza development prophylactically, preventatively? And the answer was yes. There was a group of doctors that were able to 100% have 100% prevention, and they were using ivermectin. Ivermectin is a well-known dewormer and parasite killer. So if you don't have if you take enough ivermectin, it kills all the parasites in your system, you can't get a cold. Now, try it yourself. I tried that. I've been testing that out for 25 years. I am absolutely convinced it's true. At this point in my life, there's no way I'm getting a cough, cold, flu, fever, anything. And I've been exposed as much as anybody. I traveled the world straight for 26 years. I was in planes, trains, automobiles, the whole thing. Now, I not only do parasite killing herbs, and I don't do them every day, but I do them consistently. I might do 30 days and then not do it for 3 months, then do another 30 days and not do it for 3 months, just because of exposure in the environment, or a dog comes and licks your face or something. But I also do the immune modulatory herbs like the medicinal mushrooms, all the great Chinese herbs, all the great Amazonian herbs, depends on what mood I'm in, all the great Vedic herbs, again, depends on what mood I'm in. And most of my diet today, I would say, is more herbal, because I'm more interested in that. That's, again, a developmental thing. When you're a child, you need food. As a middle-aged adult, it's more about superfoods, because you don't need as much of the calories, but it's nice to have some of those highly modulated superfoods like goji berries or aloe vera or maca or hemp seed or things like that. And that's what people get in their smoothies. Then you get to a point where you're like, I don't even really want that. It's too many calories. You know how it is as you get older. It's like you eat anything, you gain weight. You're like, well, my God, I just ate one meal. I'm still gaining weight. What's going on? You generally, at that age where I'm at, 50 or above, you want to get to a point where you're like, hey, let's just do herbs and do as many herbs as we can. And they're very good appetite suppressants, by the way. Herbal tea is an amazing appetite suppressant. And that's kind of where I'm at. But it's also immune modulatory, so that you can modulate your immune system, so your immune system is functioning properly. And what I mean by that, let me just clarify that a little bit more. Celery is a great food. I love celery. I'm a big fan of celery. I've grown celery. I love being a grower of the things that I talk about. That's one of the things that I think that differentiates me as a nutritionist. Pretty much, if I'm going to say something, I've grown it. But celery is like good food for your bones. Celery is great food for your intestines. It's indirectly an immune system food, because it's good for your bones and your intestines. and it's not affronting your system with a bunch of insults. It's your immune system goes, okay, we're not irritated, everything's good. But it's not a direct food nutrition for the immune system. Medicinal mushrooms like reishi mushroom and chaga mushroom and lion's mane mushroom and trametes, these are direct foods for the immune system. They provide nutrition for the immune system. And therefore, your immune system can modulate up and produce more immune system weaponry, up to 7 different weapons that normally it would not be able to produce in a white blood cell. That's such an important concept. This is, people ask me like, oh, nutrition, is it really important? It's like, oh, it's really important when you really understand what it's capable of doing, because you can sure live without medicinal mushrooms, but not optimally, because you're not getting the full and complete nutrition for your immune system, your white blood cells and your NK cells, etc. So that's something I wanted to just point out, is that's part of the overall picture as well. And that's one of the reasons why I focus on herbs rather than pork or chicken or poultry. It's like, we don't need that stuff anymore. We've had enough of that stuff in our lives or in our genetics. I'd recommend looking somewhere else.
What's different about seeds, soil, and food that you grow versus what you buy at the supermarket?
The simplest answer is there's love in it. Your love, your energy's in it. We know that. That's just, sure, we don't have the analytical data to prove that conclusively. Okay, but our science is very rudimentary. We have a overall almost a religious belief in our society that science knows everything. And we're finding out science knows very little. We're just at the very beginning of a scientific era. And so the science is trying to say, oh, no, we know everything. And that's just an arrogance of our current civilization. So what we want to do is we want to jump to kind of the next step, which is we get out of the, I guess, the ideas of like everything's going to be scientifically explained, and we get into the idea that our love matters. Our love matters. And our love is our expression of art in the world. It's our work in the world. It's our relationships in the world. And it's our relationship with the earth. So that's why grandma's tomatoes taste better. That's why homegrown tomatoes taste better. And tomato, by the way, it looks like a heart. It's red, right? So it's got the shape and it's got the chambers like a heart has. And so it picks up the love. It does. And that's why it tastes different. You're like, this is like, what's going on with this tomato? Because it's homegrown. And food that's homegrown just has that. Apples have that. Homegrown apples are just real strong concentrators of your own love. And I could go on about that. Homegrown chocolate or cacao is like that. It very strongly responds to you as a human being. Some plants don't. If you're growing pine trees like to be ignored. You know, you plant them, you ignore them, you let them do their thing. But trees like a chocolate tree or apple tree, they like attention. They like to, they like you right there. And there's many vegetables that are like that. They like, hey, trim me. Hey, come over here, take a look at me. Hey, check me out. And that's one of the things you find out with farming, is that your love goes into the earth and comes back at you. And so you're multiplying that. It's one of the great relationships of our life. And I'm sad for people who don't have that relationship with growing things. That relationship's a beautiful thing, even if it's just growing a tree in the backyard or a couple trees or having a little small elevated garden, little raised bed garden. Super fun.
Tell us about grounding. What are the best things we can do to benefit from it?
One of the best things you can do is this right here. Be barefoot. Being barefoot is so important just for the overall correct articulation of your joints and your legs, especially if you've gone through injuries. Like I broke this foot once, I broke that foot twice, I injured a tendon in this leg. And when I'm wearing shoes on the rehab of all this, it's just something's disturbed with the shoe, because it's like wearing a boot. You're wearing a cast. A shoe's a cast. When you're actually walking on the earth, your foot articulates correctly. Your whole motion, your whole body is correct. And therefore, you're going to heal correctly because everything's in its right relationship. That's one part of it. Another part of it is that there's a force that is pushing out of the earth. Now, we have identified those as negatively charged electrons. The earth actually pushes those out from itself. When I was in engineering school, we were taught that the earth is like a sink. It's a ground, so it's drawing the energy down. That's actually incorrect. The earth is actually pushing electrons out of itself, and it pushes them right into you. So as long as you don't have a shielding mechanism, namely a rubber-soled shoe or a wooden floor or a second story building and you're up on that second story, that's shielding you from the electricity being pushed out of the earth. If you have that shielding, as long as you don't have that shielding, then you're getting electricity. It's going to saturate your body, and then you come into connection with everything on earth. Like every deer in this neighborhood, there's many deer in this neighborhood, they're all grounded, 100% of them. There's no shoe on a deer. So when you're electrically grounded, and then you're electrically connected with every tree, the earth itself, and every animal. And there's something to that. Over many years, I've been, I think, promoting this for about 15 years and living it myself. There's something to be said about that. If you're in a forest barefoot, you can detect animals differently being barefoot than with a shoe on. There's something to that. Another thing I will say about that with in the wintertime is with snow. You have to work your way up to it. It takes about 2 weeks, but eventually when you're barefoot in the snow, you become used to it. So all of a sudden you could do 15 minutes out there. Next thing you know, it's 20 minutes. Next thing you know, it's 45 minutes. Pretty soon you can be out there for an hour barefoot in the snow. And this is something that's so amazing is you actually start to realize that the earth's warm. The earth is warm. As soon as you start putting the shoe on, all of a sudden you become cold because you're not connected to the earth. The earth is warm. That's true, by the way. One of the things that we know about the earth is if we dig down in the earth is always 56 degrees approximately Fahrenheit. Unless there's like, something weird going on, like geological activities pushing up hot water or something. It's always cold. The earth is always cold to 56 degrees, but it's never freezing down there or anything like that. So when it's snowing out, and let's say it's 32 degrees out, the earth's warmer than the atmosphere. That there's something to be said for being barefoot on the earth and being warmer. That's something I've experimented with living in the woods. I lived in the Canadian woods for 16 years. So I was doing that every day. Every day I'd run out, when the sun rose and I'd sit out there for 10 minutes and do prayers with the sun and barefoot and just tough it out. And eventually it becomes easier and easier. Eventually like, oh, let me just go a little bit deeper in the forest. And then those are just some of the interesting little side effects that are beyond just the science of like, oh, negatively charged electrons. And by the way, negatively charged electrons are really important as anti-inflammatory. They're the most important anti-inflammatory electrical impulses in nature. Therefore, if you're in pain, one of the best things you can do for your pain is go lay on the earth. Super important for pain. And you'll find out quickly what happens to your pain, which it dissipates usually within an hour because the negatively charged electricity pushes off the inflammatory response, which is essentially positively charged electricity. Therefore, you could do an experiment. And we did this experiment with groups for years where we'd put people in the audience and we'd have a ground rod that would be stuck outside and we'd run a wire from that rod to the person and we'd put it on their back. Let's say they had lower back pain. We just put it on their back and we go, okay, minute one, where's your pain on a level, say 0 to 10? They'd say it's at a 9. And then we go, okay, 30 minutes later, where are you at now? It's at a 7. Then we go an hour later, okay, where are you at now? It's at a 3. Okay, it's an hour and 15 minutes later, where are you at? And they're like, it's like a 1. It's gone. This is just a remarkable thing. It's experimental. It's experiential. Go out and do the science project on yourself. If you have pain, go lay on the sand. Go lay on the earth. Be on the earth and see what it does to your pain. And I can assure you it's good bringing your pain down. In many cases, it will eliminate it entirely.
Do you recommend green vegetable juice each day?
Oh, I love green vegetable juice every day. Do I do it myself? I have done it myself for years at a time, and you get in and out of these habits and patterns. It depends on where you're living. When I was living in Southern California, it was so easy because the health food store would make it, and it was right down the road, so you could go there and get your green juice. Or this is a great tip for people who are out of money: is I would go to the health food store when I had no money or too much month at the end of the money. And I'd say, hey, you guys are throwing away produce. Can you guys just put it all in a bag for us and we'll come by at like 7 p.m. Just throw it in the back of the health food store. We'll just take the trash bag. And they would do that. And so we'd get big trash bags full of lettuce and celery and stuff they couldn't sell, cabbage. And we'd go back and we'd juice it. So we'd have these big glasses every day of green juice. That was so fun. Sometimes it's a little intense, and that's generally where I get to sometimes. Sometimes if you're doing like dandelion green juice, it's a little intense. So I'd like to tone it down with celery and cucumber, which just makes it a little bit more palatable. Or you put something in it like lemon or apple. So those acids, like the malic acid or citric acid, cuts through a little bit of that intense alkalinity. Because these green juices are very alkaline. They're really good. It's a really good source of energy. No calories. It's amazing. There's no protein really. I mean, it's protein in it, but not enough to really be a source of energy. There's no like stimulants. There's really no sugar, but you're getting all kinds of energy out of it. What a great weight loss tool.
What do you eat every day?
Geez, one of the things I mean, I don't eat the same things every day, but I would say I eat chocolate every day. I'm a cacao grower. I'm a chocolatier, and we actually perfected the idea of making raw chocolate, which is the processing of the chocolate, keeping it below a flash point temperature so that the chocolate doesn't actually burn or singe or become too hot. And that cold processing chocolate is called Sacred Chocolate. That was my company. We are in the process right now of handing that company off to two friends, which I'm very, very excited about it. We ran that company for 15 years. So I'm like, I want to do something else. They want to step in. So that process is happening right now. I'm very excited about it. And the chocolate that I originally was putting out there and still putting out there tremendously is the raw chocolate nibs, beans, powder, butter, which then allows you to make your own little chocolate drinks and your own little chocolate concoctions and elixirs. And that's one of my favorite things ever. I had one last night. It was just awesome. It's always awesome. These are always just a great thing to have, especially if you're hanging out with friends at night. We had a big party last night, and we were all celebrating, and we had chocolate drinks going around, which had things in it like there was an herbal tea underneath it. I'm not sure what the herbal tea was. Maybe it was some kind of might have been chaga tea, chaga mushroom tea. And then we had some oat milk in there, and we had some cacao powder and a little bit of cacao butter and a few nibs. And then we had a little bit of honey. Then we had what did she use? She used lucuma. Lucuma is a really great kind of non-glycemic sweetener. So it's kind of an emulsifier where it brings the fatty element, say the oat milk, together with the sweet element, like say the honey. So it bridges that. So when you drink a drink that has lucuma in it, lucuma is used in ice creams in South America. Every ice cream you could ever get in South America has lucuma in it. And it just bridges that sweet. So it's like almost smooth without a flavor taste bump at all. So it was a wonderful drink last night. That's a very common thing for me to do. Another thing, of course, I eat a lot of is avocados. And I had half an avocado this morning. Very common. Love eating avocados. I've been an avocado grower since 1978 and grow currently 40 different types of avocados in Hawaii when I can get there. Haven't been there in a while, but heading back to our farm there very soon. I'm very excited to get back there. And I've been a seedling avocado grower. So I don't grow grafted avocados with the grafted avocado is like a Hass avocado. So you always get the same type of avocado every time. I'm trying to breed true from seed. I'm trying to get the best genetics. And then people who like grafting will come to my farm and be like, hey, I like that variety right there. Can I graft that variety onto this rootstock? I'm like, sure, come over, get whatever you want. So that's kind of my relationship with the avocado growing community on our island there in Hawaii is more of one where I'm breeding for different cultivars and different profiles, and then people who like that will come over and then they'll take a cutting of that and graft it onto a rootstock and then grow an entire tree, so you produce the exact cultivar that I had created, essentially. Does that make sense? That's what grafting is in the fruit tree world. Not everybody understands grafting, but that's a quick synopsis.
What are the top 10 nutritional supplements that you recommend everyone take each day?
Oh, I love enzymes. So supplements I really love. I love enzymes. I'm always trying different ones. This is the current ones I'm doing right now from Life Extension. I was doing Masszymes for my friends over at BioOptimizers. And I'm just always trying different ones and just love enzymes as a category. I like probiotics as a category. I'd recommend the most important probiotic, especially for people who are rebuilding their digestion, is L-Plantarum. L-Plantarum. And that's a really good one to culture vegetables with. So if you want to culture your cucumber, onion, cabbage thing, and you want to let's just culture it and get it to ferment, make a sauerkraut out of it, then you're going to use L-Plantarum as your primary friendly bacteria. So probiotics is on my list. I'm a huge charcoal fan. My charcoal's in the car right now. Otherwise I'd show it to you, but I make actually a particular charcoal product called Coal Biter, which we just decided, because I found out, this is something most people don't know, it's very common in the supplement industry. There's a very wide variance in quality control in the supplement industry. So when I got heavily into charcoal, I was like, I want to develop like a charcoal product. And I just started getting into it. we had real troubles finding quality charcoal. Real troubles. I was really shocked to find that out. Activated charcoal, you see it everywhere, right? You see it in every health food store. That stuff is, it might have 1 part per million lead in it or more. I personally can't sell something like that. So that stuff in a health food store may have that stuff in it, but I have certain standards. So I just kept going deeper and deeper on the standards. Finally, I was like, geez, this is actually a difficult project. It's our most difficult project even today. And so if people who know my Cold Biter product, they know that I'm sold out of it often because I can't get the quality that we want, but I won't compromise on quality. I'm not, I can make money other ways. I don't need to make money on selling products, but it's a hobby of mine. I actually love being in the product business, and that's why I went back to it. I was off of it for a few years, then went back to it because I just love it. And right now, the people who are actually shipping the products, a family, so it's a family-run business, which is really fun. Anyway, this is a big category, the charcoal category, because charcoal, in terms of detox, is the number one substance. It's the safest, it's the simplest, it makes the most sense, it has the most research on it. The research on it is astounding, and I'll leave for people to look into it. I recommend getting a few books on charcoal, some wonderful books you can just pick up off the internet on charcoal and its history and longevity research. I would say if I had to pick any single supplement to give me the best odds for living the longest, I'd say charcoal is it. Animal research is conclusive about that, and that's the reason. And it's also a black substance. Charcoal is black, and this is a known thing in Taoism and Chinese medicine, that black substances are associated with longevity. So then we'll go to another black substance. Shilajit is another big one that I love a lot. I spent many years looking for the best Shilajit in the world, and really, you just can't trust products unless you really do your due diligence. And it took me a lot of years to finally lock down on Pure Black. Pure Black is the best Shilajit in the world. They've got the best quality controls. They've got the best sourcing. And I eventually tracked down the guy who owns Pure Black, and we became friends. And I really was like, man, this is something else. You've really done a great service here, because the Shilajit product, which comes from India, it comes from the Highland Mountains. It's not only found in India. There's Shilajit that comes out of many mountain ranges all over the world, but that's where it became popular for human consumption. There's many contaminants that could get into it, when you're dealing with like the India supply chain. You got to make sure you're going right to the source. Otherwise, they might cut it with stuff, in order to stretch it. We've all heard those stories before. So that's another big one. Shilajit, a black resin from the mountains, and it's a pure adaptogen. So that's another big one on my list. What else would be on my list? I like this one, the one I was showing you earlier, the omega-3. This one is the DHA EPA. That's my algae oil. So I want to make sure I'm getting my omega-3s in every day. I really recommend that for just cognitive protection. We're in a world where our body will outlast our brain for most of us. And that means that this could go before the rest of us goes. And we've seen that. It's dementia and Alzheimer's, and we don't want to deal with that. So we want to make sure we're getting the right fats and oils. And I would recommend, if you're going to cook anything, use coconut oil or an ethically harvested palm kernel oil, or even olive oil, just not too hot, but not these cottonseed corn oil, soy oil. Any of those things are very disruptive of the brain. And I would associate those things not only with heart disease, but also with Alzheimer's and dementia. So because your brain is oily, so get the right kind of oils in there. What other ones do I like? Geez, there's so many. This is right here, my Ormus Gold. And this product, I usually put it on my head right here. This is a long story, but essentially it's a discovery that minerals like gold can exist in forms that are not what we think they are. And you can see here, it's basically a clear liquid, right? There's gold in there. And if you test this, you'll find that there's gold in there. I'm going to put it on this little ouchie I have over here. So rub that right in. That's another one. I use it topically, and that's a story. If anybody ever wants a story on that one, Ormus Gold, ORMUS. It's a research project. Dig in. I spent 25 years on this project, and it's near and dear to my heart, but too long. We'd have to go 7 hours to tell this story. So that's another one that I was always, it's right here. Another big one, and I actually have right on the desk here too, that I've been using lately, again, from just a little tendon injury, is DMSO. So this is DMSO right here. So DMSO topically and in a spray bottle is great. DMSO allows you to target a particular area with sulfur. When you get too much nitrogen bonding, you get scar tissue, and the tissue loses flexibility and elasticity. This allows you to get the sulfur in a curative way directly to where the problem is. If we eat something, we have to hope that it's going to get to that location, right? If we eat something like omega-3 fatty acids, we have to hope it's going to get to our brain. DMSO is interesting because it allows you to target it right where the problem is. And in a spray bottle is a great way to do it. So if you get DMSO off the internet, a good way to do it is either get a bottle, like a glass bottle, and put it into a spray bottle, or just buy it in a spray bottle. It's easier to use that way. What else do I have here? I mean, I'm a huge fan of herbs, so I do a lot of tinctures of herbs. Like this is one that I made right here. This is a chaga tincture. And I love this thing's awesome. Oh, this is so good. Let me do a little bit here. And you're going to get more of the fast-acting immunological benefits from the medicinal mushrooms in alcohol than you will from medicinal mushrooms as tea or powders. So I do them all. I do every form of medicinal mushrooms, wild ones, ones that are grown in a lab, ones that are extracted. This is all wild that I picked actually, and then extracted. This actually sat in alcohol for a year. So this is it's tasty. I just love it. But this is, let's say you feel like a cough or cold or flu are coming on, then you hit the medicinal mushrooms in tincture because they're fast acting. If you're just doing a daily thing, medicinal mushroom teas are great, or medicinal mushroom powders that you can throw into smoothies or things are great and taste good, by the way. Because people always ask me, is like, if I get a powdered like chaga mushroom, that's made, that it has to be lab grown. If you powdered a wild chaga mushroom, it's got too much fiber in it, chitin. You can't actually, it just go right through you. It's like eating wood. But the lab grown stuff that's a powder, it's actually quite good. It's delicious, actually. And it's got a lot of immunological compounds in it. And it's a good thing to have in your diet, but it's not fast acting like this. Now, I will do many different things. Somebody gave me a nice one. Let me see if I got this one here. I might have finished it off. Let me see. Oh, well, this was a similar one. This is my friends in Calgary, Alberta made this one. It's called an Alpine Winter Wellness Tonic. And this is all wild herbs. I think 10 wild herbs that they picked in their local ecosystem. Wild harvested spruce, pine, juniper, usnea, Labrador tea, yarrow, rose hips, local lion's mane, and then also a type of medicinal mushroom, which is called Ganoderma apollinatum. Spruce pitch, which is the pitch of the spruce tree, which is like a resin, pine resin, and spruce tip honey in alcohol. This is really good. This is one of those things you're like, what is this thing? So these kind of things, these little alcohol tinctures is the category here. Really fun. Man, this is so good. This one. It reminds you of winter. It's got that pine conifer flavor in it. So that's another big one that I do. I do a lot of C60, and I'll show you a C60. C60 is like a super, let me see if I got it here. It's a super charcoal. Oh, maybe I don't. Oh, no, here it is. Nope, that's my coated silver. I got coated silver instead. Anyway, the C60 is a oily delivery system for a type of charcoal that's always in every charcoal, but it's just a very small fraction. It's the most active part of any activated charcoal. It's called carbon 60. Worth your investigation. It's a great investigative research project. Get on the internet, punch in carbon 60, and just do some research there. I ended up working with a scientist who I actually work with two scientists on the project. And so I do two different products. One was created by this one scientist, another's created by another scientist. So they're different products than what you're going to find on the internet, because I've been in the C60 world longer than everybody. I just kind of stumbled across it because a friend of mine was training Olympic athletes, and she had her athletes breaking world records and breaking personal records after 10 years. That was another one that really got me going. I was like, broke your personal record in rowing. This one particular incident, this guy broke his personal 10-year record in rowing. And I was like, wow, okay, that's something. So that's what originally got me into it. So carbon 60 is something you should look at. Actually, I do have one. There's one right there. That's one of them right there. And this was made by one of those scientists. The other one is made by another scientist who's a really interesting character. And this guy worked at very high-level universities for years and years and years. And he's not in the United States. He works in another country. But eventually his government was like, hey, you're going to be working for us now. And he's like, no, I'm not. because he's in his 70s. He's done with government bullying. So he just took off and he left his university environment. He's like, I'm not doing anything for the government or the military anymore. Forget it. So he's doing that other project for us. Now, the coated silver, this is the best colloidal silver in the world. This was developed by a friend of mine, Dan Goya, who's a university professor, and he's involved in about 40% of the electronics in the world. He's a major character in that world. He can't even tell people that he's doing this because they'd be like, what are you doing with those hippies? You know what I mean? Like his world is high tech. And so he eventually got into the world of doing silver ionization into different matrices. Like, for example, one matrix might be protein, another might be polysaccharides, and another might be a sulfur-bearing protein complex, and there's different ones, or polymer. And what ended up happening is that they started realizing, like, hey, the jelly ones, the ones that are made in aloe vera gel, you could eat it, right? And you could use it topically, crazy topical. In fact, last night, I was with a doctor and a friend of mine at the party, and a friend of mine cut his finger right here badly. He gashed his finger here badly, all the way he had a flap, right? So he's on his way to this guy's office, his doctor's office, and they said, "Hey, can we put the coated silver directly on the wound?" I said, "Yes, put it directly on the wound, in it. Like, open the flap up, put it right in there. Just take a couple drops of this. This is 20,000 parts per million. Let me just give you an idea of, like, it's like liquid mercury. You know, you see that? It's most colloidal silvers is clear because it's not this kind of concentration. The reason why we can get this concentration is because you're injecting the silver into a matrix, so it can't clump to itself. So you can get a tremendous dispersion of silver ions without them clumping, and you can get something that's beyond. I didn't even think it was possible. In fact, for a year, I was like, no, it doesn't exist. And he kept coming back to me, and I said, no, this is it. Finally, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. At any rate, I saw this last night. So that he cut himself here. He had to get 2 or 3 stitches. And I just said, every day, put 2 or 3 drops of coated silver directly on the stitches, directly on the wound. The doctor told me last night, he said, you know, let me get a little bit of water here. The doctor told me last night, he said, you know, I didn't really want to stitch up the wound with the coated silver in the wound because that's just not, it's against protocol. But my friend Joyous, he's like, no. David Wolfe said it was okay. You know, it's fine. Just do it. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. So he stitched it. So he folded the flap over and stitched it all up. I said, Joyce, just keep every day putting the silver on there. And he did it for about maybe 3 or 4 days, and he forgot about it. That's what happens, by the way, because it'll heal so fast. Any topical skin thing or mouth thing will heal so fast. Even chapped lips, you'll forget about it. Within 1 day, it'll be completely healed over. So what happened is it was so healed up a week later last night that the doctor took the stitches out right there in front of us. And he said, and he told me, he's sitting right next to me, he told me, I've never seen anything heal like this ever. He's like, what is a coated silver? And as I'll hook you up with a bottle. So that was a really interesting meeting last night. This is really a breakthrough. This coated silver, especially for injuries, topical injuries, is really special. My assistant, her sister's finger, she cut off the end, either the middle finger or index finger, just the end of her finger, you know, dicing vegetables. Similar story. A week later, it was back to normal and pink. It was really, I just said, just keep dousing it on there. Keep dousing it on there. She's like, really? I was like, yeah. Then we'd unbandage it the next day and do the same thing. So that's another one. And I could take it internally. So if I'm going to take it internally, what I'm going to do is just get some water over here. And then I'll just show you how to do this. I take it internally this way. So I'll take 1 drop like that. And I'll just put 1 drop in there. That's it per day. Remember, that's 20,000 parts per million. You don't need more than a drop per day unless you're under tremendous pressure in an environment where, like, for example, in Tijuana, we had whatever COVID-19 is, certain hospitals were unaffected. Certain hospitals were very affected by whatever happened. And one of those hospitals was in Tijuana. And they had a big surge of something, whatever COVID-19 is. And so we were given bottles of coated silver out to the doctors there just because my friend He's in San Diego, so his wife is Mexican, so they go back and forth a lot. So he brought bottles over there, and the doctor said right around 6 drops to maybe even sometimes 8 drops a day when they were under heavy pressure of a lot of infected people with whatever they were infected with coming into the hospital would protect them, the doctors and the nurses. So he actually signed a sworn affidavit to that, by the way. So normally in a normal condition, it's just 1 drop. You don't need more than 1 drop a day. But under that condition, you could do 6 or 8 drops a day because of the situation at hand. So that's another one that I do. What else is in my arsenal of my favorites? I'm trying to think of my normal routine. That's probably it. I mean, I'm sure I could come up with other things. I mean, there's only so much you can eat in a day. Oh, another one. I'll tell you another one. I've been doing this one actually. Did I bring it with me? Yes, here it is. Okay. I've been doing this. I've been doing the magnesium. Now, I've had a big trouble personally finding a magnesium that I really like. Maybe other people agree. There's just certain magnesiums I'd be like, it tastes awful, or it just doesn't do anything for me, or whatever. So I finally found one. This is my friend Wade Lightheart, wonderful guy. He has his BioOptimizers company, and he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's got 7 different types of magnesium in here. It works for me. I don't know what else to say. This one works for me. I finally found a magnesium that I really like. So and they're big capsules too. And I'll just do 1 or 2 or 3 of these a day like that. And it's cool. So that's another one that I'll do is the magnesium. I will take encapsulated herbs a lot. I've pretty much downed them. I'm out right now, and so I'm going to get a new batch. But I kind of want to finish off everything that I have, and I recommend that for people. It's kind of fun, when you have a lot of supplements and stuff. Just at some point, just go through it all, get rid of it all, get your cabinet emptied out, and then start over again, so everything's new and fresh. It was a long-winded answer. Thanks for being patient.
What do you think about bee pollen? Should we try to make that part of our diet? Should sugar-sensitive people avoid it?
Great question about bee pollen. I'm a beekeeper too. I love keeping bees, and I've been producing honey for many years, about 16 years actually. And that's another one that's a quasi-animal, right? It's a quasi-animal food, and it's something that I'm okay with because I know my bees. I mean, they overproduce honey. When you get to the hives and the whole hive is smelling like honey, you're like, oh, there's too much honey in the hive. This is when a bear will come around, by the way. Now, we produce this honey in Hawaii, so we don't have bears, so we're good on that side of things. But this is what happens in normal hives is eventually they overproduce. Then a bear goes, hey, well, I'm smelling that. What's going on over there? And they'll go in and get some. Honey and bee pollen and propolis are the products of the hive. They are some of the most important, I think, insect-derived nutrients. As strange as it sounds, over the years, I found out you actually need something from every kingdom. You need something from the mushroom kingdom. You need something from the animal kingdom. You need something from the plant kingdom, mostly plants. But you also need something from the insect kingdom. This is just the natural. We're human beings. We need things from the mineral kingdom. I mean, this magnesium is a mineral chelate, right? It's magnesium chelate, magnesium biglycinate, magnesium aspartate, magnesium malate, magnesium orotate, magnesium taurate, magnesium citrate. It's all of those. To get the magnesium to get in, which is really mineral in origin. So we're an alchemical being. That's one of the things I've learned over the years is that some of my diet idealisms just went out the window. There's something to be said for a human being sourcing some of their food from the insect kingdom. I don't want to eat bugs. I'm not going to eat crickets. I like crickets. I don't want to eat them. Plus, I think it's gross. But I'm cool with getting honey, and I'm cool with bee pollen. Bee pollen's not even really an animal thing. It's just they went and got pollen, and as they're coming through, you put basically a little mesh screen, and they come through and it knocks some of the pollen off into a tray, and you collect it that way. And so it's really flower pollen would be a better name for it. But propolis definitely is a bee product. Mixing all 3 of those together is a deep love. I love mixing all 3 of those together, where you mix the honey, the propolis, and the bee pollen together in a big mash and eat that. Is that going to be too much sugar? Generally, pollens, the only thing you're going to have as a problem with pollens is that they're pollens. You could be allergic to it. So sometimes if you eat a lot of pollens, which I've done before, and all of a sudden your stomach goes, oh, wait, it's too much all at once. Wait, hold on. Of course, if there's honey in there, then your blood sugar could be spiked. But if you do it all together, the propolis, the pollen, and the honey together, it's really something. Or even sometimes the royal jelly, which is the food for the queen bee. If you can do that in a healthy way and get a good quality royal jelly and do all four of those together, it's quite a superfood combo. I think it's one of the great superfood combos of all.
How do you get rid of candida?
Best way to get rid of candida is the same way you get rid of every parasite. You got to take things that are herbs that are anti-parasitic. And one of the best things actually in the mineral kingdom is what I'm actually having here, which is silver. Silver is very good against candida and yeast overgrowth. So this is a good kind of prophylactic against candida, keep the candida down in your system. Candida is natural, right? All of these things, even coronaviruses, they're natural, and flu viruses, they're natural. We got to keep them all in check. That's the whole key of all health and all health science, keeping everything in check. And when something gets out of balance, like yeast, that's telling us something's out of balance in our diet. Something's out of balance in our lifestyle. We're having too much sugar. So I would recommend something like this, like 1 drop a day, not too much, because when somebody's disturbed with candida, they may have other issues going on as well. There might be a disturbance in their whole microbiome. That's the fancy word that we use for the collection of friendly bacteria that lives on our gut and on all the surfaces of all our cells, on our body outside, and also in through our mouth and all the way through our gut. Now, I'm going to say one more thing on that, on the herbs. There's really 3 herbs that I like to talk about in relationship to candida. One of them is horsetail, which is a personal favorite. Absolutely love horsetail. It's one of my favorite things of all time. Another one is reishi mushroom. And people go, wait a second, it's a mushroom. You can't have reishi mushroom. It's going to feed candida. Reishi is like the queen of all mushrooms and all yeasts, and it's all the way at the top. So the chemistry of reishi is absolutely anti-candida because it has to fight off the candida too, as good as anything. So reishi has a very strong anti-candida property, and I like taking the bitter reishi products for that purpose. So if you are tasting like a reishi product, let's say a tincture of some type, and it's bitter, good. You want something bitter. You want something that's going to fight that candida. So horsetail, which is an herb, equisetum is the genus of that herb, just in case somebody wants to look that up, Equisetum. And then reishi mushroom. And then the third one is a personal favorite. It's a tree I grow. I brought it back from the Amazon. I'm in love with this tree. It's the bark of the tree that's used. You can literally walk up to this tree and just bite into it. It's crazy. And it tastes pretty good. And that's pau d'arco, or they call it in South America, they call it lapacho. And that's something else. I just love pau d'arco because it's delicious, but it's super anti-candida. It's sweet. It's sweet. So if you're really going, I need something, I've got to deal with candida, what am I going to do? Pau d'arco tea is your answer. The Shipibo tea, the traditional Amazonian tea, is pau d'arco on one hand and cat's claw, uña de gato, on the other. That combination is a wonderful combination and a recommended one, and good for candida too. So those are my recommendations there.
Do you recommend fasting? How often then for how long? Water or green juice?
Great. I'm heading into a fast coming up here actually on Thursday. So Thursday we start a process where we move to it's a 3-week process. So this is what I've learned over the years, and I'm just going to give you my experience. It's 27 years now doing this professionally. So what I've learned is that if you just go, let's just fast, it's too shocking on your body. You have to guide your way in. And I found out from experience trying 4 days, let's try a week, let's do 10 days, let's do 2 weeks, let's do 3 weeks, that there's a sweet spot. And it's a sweet spot for most human beings. And it's a beautiful thing because we're not all, exactly alike, but there's always a sweet spot. It's a bell curve, right? Where your body's ready. So let me lay it out. What we do the first week is we get down to 1 meal a day, and the rest is all liquids. And it's all vegan diet. So we get people off of all the other stuff they're eating and just start thinning down the diet, and it's all organic. And this is going to start Thursday. So then we bring this down with calories throughout the week. So we start on Thursday, and you have your one meal, and then the rest is liquids. It could be soups, it could be blended stuff. But through that week, you're bringing your calories down. The second week, you're going all liquids. And through that week, you're bringing your calories down. Now, the whole time we're doing enemas, we're doing colonics, we're doing the parasite-killing herbs. We're working it, right? We're doing the yoga. We're making sure we get the hour in nature every day. And we have, a whole protocol of things. But the basics is what I'm talking about here. Then, on the beginning of day 15, we are ready to go on to water. Then we're ready for water. And it's amazing. If you just do those 2 weeks, just as I described, you do it that way, you're at the right moment. If you try to go 3 weeks and then be like, okay, now I'm ready for water, you've gone too far. You're unripe, you're overripe. Generally, for most people, is what I found. This is just from trial and error, because we've always tried, like, okay, let's get everybody ready in 4 days. Again, let's get everyone ready in 3 weeks. We tried every iteration of it. 10 days, 2 weeks is the right amount, and then everyone's ready. And then it's not. Also, we have to consider your time. We have to consider, like, your life. We can't take your whole life away. It's like we got to get done 3 weeks, and we got to get the cleansing done. So when we get into the colonics, in the third week, it's really great, because then if you're emptied out, it's so much easier. And that beginning of that third week, let's say you did a colonic on the beginning of week 1 and beginning of week 2, you've done everything I've described. You got those calories down. We got down to liquids. Then on that first day, after you come out of that third colonic, you're in. You'll succeed, and you'll get through that first day of no food and only water, and be like, that was easy. Second day will come, and you'll be like, I made it. Third day will come. You're going to be like, I got through the third day. And you just keep going. And we just get you through 7 days on water. And then then we reverse course. And on the fourth week, we start you going back again. So let's just describe it like this. If it took you 3 weeks into the cleanse, it's going to take, say, 11 days, 10 and a half days to get out, half the distance. So you don't want to suddenly, like, hey, let's go eat potatoes or something. You can't do that, right? Coming off a water fast, you reverse direction and you go, let's go back on liquid. So then you're able to go back to doing celery juice and green juices. Then in a few days, you're able to do like a smoothie with blueberries in it. And then step by step, you go back to food. And that process, it works, because it can fit your schedule. And we generally land those right on the changes of the seasons. That's where your body's really oriented towards cleansing. So that's when we do the cleanses. We do the 2 big ones, especially the equinoxes. Really, the equiluxes is a better word, but the equiluxes on the spring and autumn. But sometimes we'll even add a third cleanse in, or a fourth one in on the solstices. So it just depends on how I'm feeling that year, if I want to do more. It's more of a labor of love. It's not a big, we charge $99 for 3 weeks. You get a lot. It's full. We're there. I'm there with you every day on coaching you on a chat. It's more about the process for everybody, and it's more of a offering for the community. And it's also a community building exercise. It's really, really powerful to do it together. Very powerful. And the phrase that we put through all our cleanses is, together is better.
Raw cacao theobromine, which is a stimulant, does that make this a food to eat, only in moderation?
Great. Stimulants are for some people and not for others. I will say that clearly. Life Extension Magazine did 2 very in-depth studies on coffee, and then Dr. Mercola did a follow-up in-depth study on coffee, where they took all the available literature on coffee and went through all of it. Like, is coffee good for you? Is it bad for you? Like, is our stimulants bad? Is caffeine bad? And it's an interesting discovery. The answer is, it's bad for some people and not others. And that's just true of all herbal medicine. It's just the way it is. So you have to find out, like, I can't drink coffee. Coffee it gives me a weird nervous system. I just don't like it. And some people get that from cacao. They can't eat chocolate. They get that same feeling. Now, I can eat chocolate all day long. I'll eat chocolate and go to bed. It's not a stimulant for me in that way. In fact, chocolate's more dominant in theobromine, which is more of a cardiovascular stimulant, whereas caffeine's more of a nervous system stimulant. And so actually cacao or chocolate is actually low in caffeine, high in theobromine, whereas coffee contains no theobromine, but is high in caffeine. And things like yerba mate actually does contain a significant amount of theobromine and caffeine. So you just have to find out what's the right thing for you, if stimulants will even work for you at all. I'm a night owl, so I like stimulants at night. So I like to drink my chocolate drink at night and work into the night. This is an individual issue that each person has to determine for themselves. Some people, they're just going to have to not eat chocolate or have coffee in their life, or yerba mate. Or again, some people will find one works, but the other doesn't.
What should everyone know about wild food foraging? Should we make wild edible weeds a part of our diet?
I love wild food. Like, it's one of my favorite hobbies, actually, being out wild foraging. And you got to know what you're looking for. When I'm in Canada every day, especially in the late summer, We work all day and then work in the yard until right before sunset. Then we'll go swim in the local lake, and then we'll pick mushrooms on the way home, and then we'll go cook them up for dinner. So have a salad and wild mushrooms. You don't want to be doing that unless you know what you're doing with mushrooms. You got to be really careful. It's taken me years and years of studying and learning and being taught to find out which wild mushrooms are edible and which aren't. And you just have to have a real knowledge about it. If you don't know, don't try. You don't want to do something dangerous, because there are some deadly mushrooms out there. Deadly gallerinas, destroying angels, another one that people mistake, and you just don't even want to take a chance. So that's the negative side. The positive side is there's a lot of free food out there. There's a lot of wild berries out there. There's a lot of wild blackberries. There's a lot of wild raspberries. There's a lot of wild blueberries. There's a lot of wild food. There's a lot of wild fruits. There's a lot of wild green edible things. In this ecosystem, one of the wild foods we do a lot of is a stimulant, Ilex vomitoria, which is the yerba mate of the north. There's a yerba mate that grows in North America. It grows all through Texas, and we call it yaupan. And yaupan's a completely wild plant. Totally grows wildly everywhere, all through Texas. And we dry it, or we'll take it green and powder it, and you just put it in tea and you drink it, and it's phenomenal stimulant. That's another one I really like. It's real smooth energy, probably because it comes from a leaf as opposed to a seed, right? Because coffee's coming from a seed. Even cacao's coming from a seed. It's coming from a nut. So it's really like a real clean energy, smooth, and just works for me. There's so many great things out like that, all free. It's just, that's so amazing. There's so much food out there. It's crazy. Like right now I'm looking out, I'm seeing wild junipers. So I could be out there. Let's say we go on a hike, and I will go on a hike later today. I'll eat 3 or 4 or 5 wild juniper berries. They're delicious and they're really good. And you don't need much because wild food's so much more powerful. It's so much more potent. I lived on a bit large percentage of wild food for a long time, or foraged food, even from people who had trees in their yard. I'd knock on the door and be like, hey, you got like 300 lemons on this tree, and they're always just dropping to the ground. Can I just like get 100 of them? And they'd be like, oh, you take them all. And so we take them all. And we do that in the neighborhood and just go around, and just, there was so much free food. We are in a crisis actually of abundance, but not realizing it, not seeing it. And so that's really the great breakthroughs, when you like go, oh, look at all this great stuff around here. It's all here. That's the power of wild food and wild eating.
Do you recommend colonics? Are they necessary?
I love colonics. I think they are necessary for people who are backed up, if they can handle it. I really feel like it's necessary for me, because we're just in an unnatural state all the time. Like I'm sitting right now. I'll be sitting for hours. This is totally unnatural. This is not a normal thing for a human being to be doing. I should be out walking. I should be squatting. I should be rolling around on the ground. I should be swimming. But sitting, that's not good for your digestion. So colonics kind of comes in, and enemas come in to an unnatural situation that we're in. And I would also say this, the research on longevity indicates that it's metabolic problems and detoxification that get us in the end, meaning that our body's not 100% efficient in eliminating waste. To think so would be naive. It'd be very naive to think your body's 100% efficient. I get people who say that to me, and I'm like, that's a very naive statement. Nothing's 100% efficient in nature. There's going to be a loss, right? That's just probabilities. So at some point, your body goes, hey, we're a little bit backed up here. We need some help. And that's where the enemas and the colonics come in. Now, a colonic is like a glorified enema, where you're going to be getting like 20 enema releases in one session instead of just one enema. And that's why I like it. So I recommend, especially for cleansing, let's say we're going to do this 3-week cleanse that's coming up on Thursday. Well, guess what I'm doing on Thursday? On Thursday, I'm going to be in for a colonic. The following Thursday, a week later, I'll be in for another colonic. The following Thursday after that, I'll be in for another colonic. So I'll get 3 in. And then I might do enemas in between, because the worst thing for fasting and cleansing is to be sitting in your own waste. At some point, you've got to pull the bathtub out and literally have 20 bowel movements or more to get everything out. Now, people ask me, will I lose weight? And the answer is, you bet. You're going to lose weight. 100% you're going to lose weight. You could lose 5 pounds in one colonic. You have a good 90-minute colonic. I did a cleanse. When was this one? This was one, geez, this is about a year ago. It was a year, exactly a year ago. And I was all the way into day 5 of the water fast. And I went to go get a colonic, and I'm in with Irene, she's my colonics gal, and we're, I don't know, 40 minutes into it, all of a sudden, boom, it's coming out. Everything's coming out. And I'm like, "Whoa, are we going to keep going?" Because normally it's over in an hour. And she's like, "No, we're going to keep going until it's over, like until you get everything out." Because it just kept coming out more and more and more stuff. I've been fasting on water. I had hardly eaten anything in weeks. Because see, this is your lymphatic system that goes, "Oh my God, let's get rid of it. We got a chance. We got the energy. We're on top of it. Let's dump it out now." And it just all comes out at once. And it's a beautiful thing. And I felt a change in my being from that. I think it was the best colonic I've ever had, actually, strangely. Out of all the years, I probably had 100 colonics in my life, easily, maybe 200. And that one was something special. I was like, whoa, that was something different happened there. We're not sick. We're toxic. We live in a toxic environment. We're in a toxic soup. We grew up in a toxic soup. So who knows what kind of toxins we've sequestered from when we were 8 years old, or some, crazy cereal product or something that we ate when we were 10, and our body never metabolized it. That felt like one of those type of releases where there was something deep in them, and my body was like, "You're going to stay right there, and we're getting it out now. Lay down." And it just came out right then. So that's where colonics can be very effective.
Do you recommend far red infrared saunas, and how often?
Oh, I just love far infrared. But I will say this: I'm in a facility right now where I've been going to, where I'm getting the colonics actually, where they have an old far infrared sauna, and it's kind of like, it's a high EMF, it's high electromagnetic field. So I don't like that one. So I'm not even using that one. I did do it one night, and I was like, whoa, this is things that like radiation coming off of it. So make sure you get the low electromagnetic field heaters, or you're using a sauna that has low electromagnetic field heaters. Those are really nice. Now, if I'm at home in my normal routine, we have one at home, so I'm there. I might be doing it every day. Sometimes I'll get up in the morning at 5 in the morning on a freezing morning, and I'll be like, "I'm just going to go straight into the sauna and just lay on the bench, and I'll sleep there and turn the thing on." Next thing I know, I wake up and I'm sweating, and it's great. So that's what that's doing, is it's sending out radiation that can penetrate deeper into your body than most saunas can, and that radiation is able to move tissue, instigate the reverse transcriptase, so it has antiviral effects and all kinds of interesting abilities to detox your body deeply. So if you have something that's deep down, mercury poisoning or something that got into your system, infrared saunas are one of those tools. Not only just feels good to sweat and get that out, but it can actually help mobilize your body's ability to get toxins that are deep in your tissue out.
Is having community and a social life a health benefit or just fun?
Oh, well, we're a social creature. Human being is a social creature. We need community. It's part of being a healthy being. We know that for sure, actually. There was that great story that was researched in Pennsylvania. It was a town, it was like Reardon, Pennsylvania, I think, something like that, where they had the lowest heart attack rates in America and greatest longevity in America. And everybody's like, it's something in the water. Maybe it's something in the food. So in the 60s, a bunch of researchers showed up there, and they were like, okay, let's just check this town and all the surrounding towns. Maybe it's something in the water, maybe it's something in the food supply. What they found out is that this town consisted of people who literally 100 years before had a boat pulled up on one side of Italy, on the east coast of Italy, and was like, "We're going to America. Who wants to come?" And like half the town's like, "We're going to America." And they jumped on a boat, and they ended up in that town. So it was a strongly knit Italian community. And they found that the number one cause of longevity in that community was the social cohesion. It was the social cohesion. I suspect this is the most important thing about health of all, is being socially connected. Just imagine, and I've looked at this on breast cancer research. If somebody gets a breast cancer diagnosis and they go home and they have a dog or a husband or someone who loves them, their chances of survival are 3 times higher than somebody who doesn't have a dog or somebody to love them, or someone they're alone. That's profound research. I mean, that means that's more important than any therapy. That's the most important thing, is the social interaction. The biggest fear that human beings have is fear of rejection. What's that mean? It means a fear of social rejection. This is why the shaming on social media is such a crisis issue, and why people like will commit suicide and all these crazy things happen. It's because social acceptance is a major human need. It's a human need. It builds health. It's very helpful. The internet actually, especially in the old days, and we'll get there again. Right now, there's a huge censorship campaign, and these companies that are censoring will actually lose their audience, and they'll go to other platforms which are being built right now. Many of them are great, even out right now. So what the internet does with the communication platforms is allows you to connect with like-minded people, which is good for your health. Actually, it's good for your health. So suddenly, actually, like, oh, I'm not crazy. Oh, other people actually do colonics. Wait, other people love fasting. Other people are actually like to drink water, or whatever the thing is. So that social connection that you have through the internet, it can be very supportive of health, especially in a crisis. Like, I have a friend of mine who I'm in touch with every day. She helps me with various business things, and she's in a really troubled situation with what's going on in Quebec right now. What's going on in Quebec right now is really disturbing, and she needs the support that I'm there for her. I feel like that. I feel like that I'm communicating with her, that she's able to interact with me, because you can't have meetings in Quebec of more than 6 people, and they've just gone totally draconian. It's gone overboard. This is typically what governments do. They just go, oh, it's a power grab. Let's go overboard. And it's not good for people. It's not healthy. But because she can reach out to me, and I'm sure others, I think it's helping her health for sure. She feels like she's living with purpose, and she got something to do, and this is a major human need. I think it might be the biggest need.
What are your thoughts on the first 12 months of the COVID virus, and what should people do to keep themselves safe from COVID?
I'm more in the Dolores Cahill camp. She's the leading virologist out of Ireland, and this is just because of my anecdotal experience and what I kind of saw firsthand. I'm pretty sure that actually COVID-19, or whatever this is, this phenomenon, actually hit California in December of 2019. I'm positive of it, because of the respiratory infections I saw in people late in the month of December of 2019. And then for sure was in Western Canada by February of 2020. And pretty much, I think, peaked out at the end of April. So whatever happened, that was when the real action happened. Since then, what happens is this stuff goes into the environment, and your body adapts, people adapt, it mutates, and it calms down. So this is why like a Spanish flu can't go on forever. Why doesn't it go on forever? Because eventually it calms down. Eventually things sort themselves out. And so we're in that stage right now. It's calming down. It's essentially sorted out. So I would say at this point, you just do the same things that I've been advising all along about, just being healthy and staying away from colds and flus and fevers, which is, one, make sure you do the bowel cleansing and get the waste out. This is a very important piece of health. Number two, tissue cleansing, squish, infrared saunas, swim, yoga, get upside down, get your tissue wrung out like a sponge. That's number two. Number three is then we've got to make sure what's coming in is clean. So we're going organic, plant-based. Make sure you're eating lots of vegetables, because the fiber, so things are moving through your system, so you're not getting constipated, that kind of thing. Number four then becomes all the right, the herbs and the right supplement regime and that kind of a thing. That would be the charcoal and the medicinal mushrooms and all those other things that come in on top of that, and also the parasite killers. Make sure you're on the parasite killing herbs, and that's the general layout of the strategy. Eventually, as you get more sophisticated, then you can move on to things like electronic medicine, zappers, and other things that are Rife machines, and pulsed electromagnetic field devices, which are just kind of able to kind of bump you up even another level if you want that or understand that. I'm big in electronic medicine. I think there's just incredible breakthroughs, and I've used zapper devices for decades now, and I've seen them work in miraculous ways. And so I know they work, because people go, well, I read on the internet, it doesn't work. It's like, well, I have 20 years experience. So I'm going to tell you, when you take a zapper and you put it next to an infection, like somebody has an infection, like, somebody gashes their arm or something, and you put a zapper next to it, watch what happens in 10 minutes in terms of the infection. So it's really amazing. So I've been through all that. So anyway, so that's my general gist of how to be healthy. Of course, you've got to make sure you're getting sunlight, fresh air. You can't just do all that indoors. You got to be outside. We like to say, like, get outside the box, which means get outside, because we're in a box. So get outside and get that sunlight, because that's the vitamin D factor, which is one of the biggest factors, actually, strangely and interestingly, with COVID-19. And it just shows you how corrupt governments are, because they never talk about vitamin D3, even though we have over 80,000 studies on D3 in the immune system. It's never even talked about in any kind of media. So that's an important message to everybody listening right now. We have 80,000 studies. I think it's 83,000 studies on vitamin D3 in the immune system. You never hear about it on the media or the news. That's why I don't watch TV, because they're trying to sell you a product. They're trying to sell you a pharmaceutical product. They're trying to sell you whatever their thing is, this drug or whatever. Just look at what the commercials are on TV, and that's going to tell you.
With that, why was it important for you to come speak at the Real Truth About Health conference?
I loved speaking on this subject. It's my passion. I do it every day, and you got to do what you love in your life. If you do what you love, you will be happy, even in spite of all the disasters and catastrophes of life, which will come. It's part of life. You'll be happy. And so I have been through many disasters and catastrophes, but I always found solace and I always found peace in my heart with my work, which is sharing the good news about health. And that's why I came. And it's something too that I think is right now with what's going on is something that's an even more important message than ever before. Because again, we're getting so many, it's basically sales pitches. People come on TV and like, I'm going to sell you on this. You have to take this, whatever, take these drugs or take this injection or whatever. It's a real sales pitch. I'm just trying to say, hey, how about get outside? How about sunlight? How about the things that are here, the wild food that's already here? How about the bowel cleansing and the tissue cleansing? How about the fasting? And these are the balancing messages that need to be out there to the other stuff.
Well, we thank you for that message, and we thank you very much. You were very gracious with your time, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to everyone out there, have the best day ever.
Thank you so much, David. Be well.
Cheers. You too.